¿Qué pasa, YouTube? What's up? How's it going, everybody? Have for y'all today my round 1 matches or games in this seasonal Ubers tournament I signed up for because I want to get more into Ubers in not Ubers, well, obviously more into Ubers, but I want to get more into tournament games in 2018. So it's like, hey, why not sign up for this Ubers tournament? We'll see how things go. I also signed up for a PU tour that should be starting in a few days, so you guys may see hopefully a couple rounds of that. But yeah, if you are excited for this, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below and let me know in the comment section below if you would like to see some more tour games like this. And this may be the only upload for today, but tomorrow should have a live and Wi-Fi battle for you guys. So yeah, hope y'all do not mind. Just been busy, and yeah, I couldn't do this live because a bunch of noise in the background, and not only just my children. But yeah, this is a pretty cool team. I don't remember where I got this team. It's based around Dragon Dance, Zygarde, Toxic Spike, Toxapex, which Specs is actually something I've been wanting to use a while now in Ubers. We have Spadef Magearna here, Spadef Primal, Groudon, Scarf, Yveltal, and I believe this was Arceus Water. So going into this matchup, Celesteela is going to be an absolute nightmare. However, though, T-Spikes are going to be very handy because we can Toxic 4/6 of his team. But Celesteela, unfortunately, does not have too many counters on my team. Like, the fact that it can just spread Toxic around and Leech Seed me is going to be really, really annoying. If I can maybe get my Zygarde set up behind a substitute, then that will allow me to set up on the Celesteela. But late game, Zygarde does look like it can clean up if I can get up to +2. So yeah, depending on what kind of Necrozma set this is will determine on how I can deal with it. Kyogre is a bit of an issue to this variant of the team, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, let's get this started. So I'm going to be leading off with my Arceus Water here, expecting him to lead off with the Groudon, but he actually ends up leading off directly with the Kyogre, and that's a little bit scary. So I'm going to switch out here into my Primal Groudon, as he does just end up going straight for the Thunder, and then reveals to have the Earthquake, which means he most likely is the mixed liquidation set of Kyogre, which is actually really cool. I've used that set a couple times myself, and this turn I'm just going to go for the Precipice Blade as I catch the incoming Xerneas, as he then goes for the Defog. I did not expect him to have Defog on this. This means it could be like a setup variant of Arceus in the back. But I believe I ended up going for the Rock Tomb here, just on the off chance that he did try to set up, or if he was Choice Specs, which I've used Spec Xerneas myself before, then I could go for the Rock Tomb and then outspeed him the next turn, because we do have enough speed on this Primal Groudon to outspeed Yveltal and Xerneas that are not Scarfed at -1, so then we can maybe 2 KO them, or maybe get a Brock or something along those lines. But I just felt Rock Tomb was definitely a solid play here, since again, I did not expect him to go for the Defog there. And this is actually a little bit bad, because if it comes down to it, he can ultimately make sure I do not keep my rocks up, as he makes a good aggressive switch here into the Kyogre. I'm going to expect them to want to go for the Ice Beam as I bring in my Toxapex here, and then I'm going to pull a switch back out in to my Groudon here, as he makes a good play there, catches me with the Earthquake. Unfortunately, though, as you can see, not really too many good switch-ins to Kyogre. I apologize. Hold on. Can I fix this? Hold on. I think it's because of the Earthquake animation, right? Yeah, okay, so it looks like this is gonna be a little messed up for you guys. I apologize. No, what's going on? Okay, there we go. Okay, so yeah, he knocks me up. In comes the Groudon, as I just take this chance to get up a T-Spike, because I expected him to maybe think I'd be fearing the Thunder there. And I'm going to switch directly into my Arceus here, as he ends up getting up his rocks. So I didn't want to switch into my Zygarde initially, because I felt like that was a little bit too risky, since this is not like standard Rest Talk Zygarde or like Sub Protect Zygarde, which is what I've mainly seen this is. I have Papa Berry with Substitute and Protect, so I guess in hindsight, I probably should have just hard switched right into Zygarde. Essentially, I was fearing just taking a huge amount of damage, and then if he's running a very speedy variant of Groudon, which could be likely, then I would not be in a very good spot, because I need this to win late game. So I brought an Arceus to gauge to see what he wanted to do, if maybe he did want to go straight for a Toxic, or if he had like the Roar or something along those lines. But he got up his rocks, and then this turn I'm thinking, okay, he's probably going to try to switch out into Celesteela here, because typically Arceus Water can't really touch Celesteela, so I'm going to try and take this chance to bring in my Zygarde and hopefully start setting up. But he goes for a Toxic, and this is bad. Like, this puts me in a really bad position. I did not, first off, I didn't expect him to have Toxic on Groudon. I don't remember the last time I've ever seen Toxic on Groudon. Literally every Groudon I run into, if they're not set up, they have Roar and Rocks as their only non-offensive moves. So the fact that he had Toxic here completely threw me off guard, honestly. And now this is a little bit bad, because I mainly needed Zygarde to try and set up and win late game here. So he's going to switch out into his Arceus, as I just go for the 1,000 arrows, trying to gauge to see how much damage I could do, or just try to get off damage on something. And this is going to be really sped up because this turns out to be Refresh Arceus Dark. And as I bring in my Magearna, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to switch out, obviously thinking I'm going to go for Floral Cannon or maybe the Heart Swap. But no, he stays in as I doubled into my Arceus in hopes to catch the Groudon. So I'm forced to switch back into my Magearna here as he does go for the Judgment. And then this turn I'm thinking, alright, so he saw that I was willing to switch in Arceus initially. So I'm going to go for the Volt Switch here, expecting the Celesteela, which is exactly what he decides to bring in as I decide to bring in my Zygarde here. He doesn't know that I have Substitute at this point, so I'm going to try and go for the sub here to hopefully try and get some use at least out of my Zygarde at this point. Maybe I can try to break through the Celesteela. If I can play it correctly around the potential Protects, then I should be in an okay spot here as Heavy Slam does fail to break my Substitute. This is really nice because I should be able to get up a potential second Dragon Dance here, putting me at +2 speed and +2 attack, but I decided just to be aggressive on the off chance that he did maybe want to switch out, or he could have just stayed in and gone for the Heavy Slam as he did. I also did expect him to maybe go for Protect there, and I really felt like I lost nothing in going for the arrows, but I guess if I did go for a second Dragon Dance, that might have been better for me. As this turn, he is going to switch out into the Arceus. I do unfortunately get a crit there. I think because of the T-Spikes, I still might have been able to 2 KO him if he was willing to sack it off here, but yeah, that does kind of suck that I got the crit there, as in comes the Necrozma here. If this is set up, this is very, very terrifying. So I decided to bring in my Yveltal here, and I believe I just go for the Heart Switch here, or I do Dark Pulse, because if you look at his team, nothing really switches into Dark Pulse, like not even Xerneas is going to be safely switching in, and because he's got leftovers on Xerneas, I'm thinking that this is probably a defensive variant of Xerneas as well, especially because he did have Defog along with the leftovers. So in comes the Xerneas here, and I'm thinking, alright, he most likely is going to try and go for the Defog here. If I still want to have a chance to win this battle, I need to ensure that I can keep my hazards up, because I still need to chip down the Kyogre, I still need to chip down the Zygarde, and then I still don't know exactly what kind of variant this Duskman is, but either way, Stealth Rock's damage is going to be well worth it. There's also the possibility that he may expect me to want to switch out and maybe try and double, but I felt in this scenario his best play was to try and go for the Defog, so I'm going to be aggressive here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and go for the Dark Pulse, and I do get really lucky and I get the flinch. I was sort of fishing for that flinch because I needed to get that flinch. It was my best chance of winning at this point. It does suck, but if I wanted any chance to win, I needed to ensure that my hazards were going to stay up here. Even though he would have defogged away my hazards, that really wouldn't have helped me out ultimately in the long run, as down goes the Xerneas, in comes the Kyogre here, and I'm going to be forced to switch out here as I bring in my Magearna. He does just go for the Thunder. Unfortunately though, he does have the Liquidation here, and if he didn't have the Liquidation, this would have been a good chance for me to potentially go for the Pain Split, or maybe go for the Volt Switch, try and gain back a little bit momentum as I bring in my Yveltal here. I can't knock him out at this range, just because Kyogre is extremely bulky, so I'm going to U-turn out just to kind of rack up an extra turn of toxic damage at this point, and luckily I can rack up 2 extra turns since my Toxapex is able to eat the Thunder as I bring back in my Yveltal here. I believe I do just go for the Dark Pulse as I will be able to knock him out, and the fact that I lived on 26% HP is actually really huge here, because at this point he can still win this game. There's absolutely no chance that Yveltal one-shots Primal Kyogre, Primal Groudon, well both actually, but there's no chance I one-shot Primal Groudon at 82%. So my best play right here is to switch directly on out into my Arceus, because he most likely is just going to try and go for the Stone Edge or the potential Fire Punch, Rock Tomb, Rock Slide, I guess, whatever move he has to hit flying types essentially. And because I can still live a switch in here, if this is not like a super bulky defensive Necrozma Duskmane, I can knock him out with the Foul Play, and because I'm Scarf, there's no way that unless he's able to get up a Rock Polish, if he is Double Dance, that he can possibly win here. So what I'm going to do is switch out and hope that the Showdown is not lying to me, because we all know, we've all been in those scenarios where it says it's 76% or 26%, but it's actually only 25 or 75%. So at this point, I'm still in fear that I can lose this battle, because I think my Yveltal is going to drop to Stealth Rocks, because I could actually be at 25%, or Showdown's going to count it as 25%. So he ends up going for the Toxic here as I go for the Ice Beam, and it's at this point in the match that it starts to dawn on me, if my Arceus ends up being the one that beats this Groudon, and that does turn out to be Rock Polish, Swords Dance, Necrozma, Duskmane, he can easily go for a Rock Polish on my Arceus. So that's actually why I decided to go for the Toxic here, so I can ensure that it's going to be a double down, as he does end up bringing in the Necrozma here. I do luckily live on 1%, and it all comes down to whether or not he is very physically defensive, or if he's just a defensive Necrozma in general, because if he's defensive in general, then he lives any hit I want to go for. But it turns out that he is a offensive variant, and I will be able to knock him out there. So I do manage to get the first victory, which is really nice. I am now up 1-0, so let's move on to game number 2 here. And I'm using a bit of a different team here. I believe this was a team I got from the Amazing Mo. It's like Double Dance Zygarde, if I'm not mistaken, and then Geomancy Xerneas. Defensive Arceus Water, I believe, defensive Groudon, defensive Yveltal, and Swords Dance or Double Dance Duskmane. Either way though, going into this game immediately, Ferrothorn is a giant problem. I have absolutely no fire moves on my team, and Ferrothorn, much like Celesteela in the previous game, can just kind of spread Leech Seed against my teams. However though, Ferrothorn can get up hazards, and then if he does have Toxic, then that's even more of an issue. And then I don't have Substitute on this variant of the Zygarde, so it's a little bit bad. And he brings the dual Weather Core again of Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre here. Mega Gengar could be a bit of a nuisance. Arceus, depending on the exact type, could also be a little bit of a problem, but let's go ahead and get into this. So he does end up leading off with the Yveltal, as I lead off with my own Yveltal, thinking that maybe he would try to lead off with the Groudon or the Ferrothorn, and I end up going for the taunt. That was a bit of a questionable play on my part. Part of me felt like, from the build of this team, it looks like this could be very well Scarf Yveltal. Like, there's no type of speed control. Yeah, Mega Gengar's fast, but it's not, I wouldn't really call it a speed control mon. Like, Scarf Yveltal was very likely on this built of team, I thought at least. And that's why I decided to go for the taunt, because I expected him to just want to go for the U-turn, go directly on out into the Groudon, potentially the Arceus even, or the Ferrothorn. But he stays in. Turns out that he is Life Orbed, and that's a little bit bad, because as you can see here, Oblivion Wing is doing pretty solid damage to me. So I'm just going to speed this little portion up, because I believe it's just me trying to gauge to see how much damage exactly he's doing to me, and maybe try to put him in a position of where he may think I'm going to switch, and then he may want to try and double switch. So I'm just going to try to get up to as much HP as possible, as I believe this turn his taunt does end. So I'm going to pull a switch out into my Arceus here, as he does go for his own taunt. And this is a little bit bad, because now I'm in a tough scenario of, is he going to go for the Oblivion Wing, or is he going to go for Dark Pulse? Ultimately, I try to bank on him going for Dark Pulse, which is why I bring in my Xerneas here. And I do get that correctly, and I'm going to go ahead and fire off a Focus Blast here in hopes of catching the Ferrothorn on the switch-in. But he does make the safe switch into the Groudon, which I'm still able to do 28% to it, which is really nice, because the more I weaken this, the easier it's going to be for my team to beat it down. So I'm going to be forced to switch out here. I do expect him to want to go for the Stealth Rocks, but he does make a good double switch here into the Kyogre. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be faster than this Kyogre if he is offensive like he was in the previous battle. So I'm going to switch into my Spadef Bulky Primal Groudon here and just go ahead and try to get on my rocks, as he turns out to be mixed again. And that is really annoying, actually, because now the background is also like really messed up, and I have to deal with this Kyogre as well. So I end up pulling a double switch here into my Solgaleo after bringing in Arceus, expecting him to try to bring in his Ferrothorn on my Arceus, but he just stays in and he goes for the Toxic, which is kind of annoying, because this turn, as I do go for the Swords Dance, this is actually not that good for me. Even though, yes, I know that this is offensive Yveltal, there is still a good chance that not only is he faster than me, but because he's Life Orbed, he could have the Sucker Punch. So I'm going to switch out here, scouting out for the Sucker Punch, because if he does have it, he's basically forced to go for it. Or if he's faster than me and he doesn't expect me to be Ultra Necrozma, then he can go for the Dark Pulse, both of which switching into my Xerneas here covered. And now what this allows him to do is go straight for the Geomancy, because at +2, I believe I do have a good chance to OHKO the Primal Groudon with Focus Blast, and I can OHKO the Ferrothorn with the +2 Focus Blast. So I'm able to live the Sucker Punch as I knock out the Yveltal. This is really huge. Yveltal, giant threat is gone, as in comes the Groudon. And this is where I kind of... See, this is why I don't like running Thunder and Focus Blast on Xerneas, because I was literally telling myself that I need to Focus Blast. I need to absolutely Focus Blast here. If Focus Blast does knock out this Groudon, this puts me in an absolutely amazing position, because then he's forced to try and bring in either the Gengar in hopes that I miss Thunder, or he's forced to try to bring in the Kyogre. No, Ferrothorn, sorry, in hopes that I miss Focus Blast. So, regardless, I would have had to rely on Focus Blast or Thunder in this scenario, and I ultimately just kind of make the worst play here, and I go for Moonblast. I really should have Focus Blasted there, like... See, again, like, if I had missed Focus Blast, then that means I got no damage off on this Primal Groudon, which would have made it harder for my team to potentially beat. But I guess ultimately still just going for the Focus Blast would have been better, because if I knocked him out here, again, he either brings in Gengar and hope that I miss Thunder, or he brings in Ferrothorn and hopes that I miss Focus Blast, and then we're back to that, just trying to hit those 70 accuracy % moves, and I already know I have bad luck. So yeah, unfortunately do not knock him out there. As I bring in my Yveltal, I will be able to knock out the Groudon, which is something. So there's still a good chance I can win this game. I am up 5-4, as in comes Arceus Fairy. This Arceus Fairy is a giant problem. It can beat my Arceus, it can beat my Groudon at this point, it beats my Yveltal, and it OHKOs Zygarde. And this is not bulky Necrozma, this is offensive Swords Dance Ultra Necrozma. So I make the aggressive switch here into my Necrozma, and then I believe I go for the Swords Dance. Yes, because I did expect them to try and switch into Ferrothorn this turn. There was also the chance that maybe he was going to try and bring in the Primal Kyogre there, and I'm just going to go ahead and go for the Earthquake, try to do as much damage as I can to this Ferrothorn. Unfortunately, do not quite get the 2-hit KO there, because he can easily live another Earthquake here. I am going to go for a second Swords Dance there, as at +4, I should be able to knock him out here, and I end up Ultra Bursting. This might have been a bit of a misplay on my part, honestly. I don't remember off the top of my head if at +4 regular Dusk mains, +4 Earthquake knocked them out, but I think if +2 Earthquake did 57%, I should have been able to do at least or around 80%. So it might have been a roll if I stayed in my normal form, and I kind of wish I had stayed in my normal form, because if he had brought in Gengar and I was able to live a Shadow Ball, then I could have stayed in my normal form and picked up another KO on the Gengar, or I would have Ultra Bursted against the Arceus or the Kyogre and ensured a KO on one of those two, and then that would have put me in a better scenario here, because I still would have been up 4-3 in that case. But yeah, he ends up just sacking off the Ferrothorn, obviously, because he can't switch into this, and then I'm gonna have to switch out here as I bring in my Arceus Water. I guess this was a little bit of a misplay on my part. I think what I should have initially done was try to bring in my Groudon here. Yeah, because the thing about it though is if I lost Groudon, then the Kyogre just kind of came in for free. But at that point, I guess I didn't really need Zygarde, honestly, in this scenario, because Zygarde doesn't really do much. I could have sacked off Zygarde potentially, or I could have brought in Zygarde in general, and then taken the Shadow Ball or Hex. He might have actually knocked me into range of where he put me in complete form, and then I might have been able to make it a double down with my Zygarde. And he just ends up picking off my Arceus here. As I bring in my Yveltal, I should be able to live a Sludge Wave, so I'm just going to Roost up this turn as he does make the safe switch here into the Arceus Fairy. And unfortunately, at this point, there's just not really much I can do against this Arceus Fairy. Like, I really misplayed there on sacking off Arceus. By making the aggressive switch into my Zygarde, that probably would have been my better play in the long run. And then he turns out to be just a very physically defensive Arceus, because it just eats that light that burns the sky, and there's no way that an E-Speed knocks out Arceus at this range. So unfortunately, we'll end up losing this game 3-0, and I still am kind of beating myself up about not going for the Focus Blast on the Groudon, because I mean, if I had hit every Focus Blast, I hit every Thunder, then I probably just won with Xerneas at that point. But yeah, it is what it is. We still have another chance. It is now 1-1, so let's go into game number 3 here. So game number 3, he busts out the Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon again, which is, I don't even run to Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon this much on ladder, but then again, ladder play and tournament play is totally different. So yeah, I digress. Anyways, Dragon Dance meant late game is a huge problem. Again, Double Dance, Necrozma is a giant issue. Yveltal's a little bit annoying for this team, but we can play around it. So I'm going to be leading off with my Arceus Dark here. Actually expecting him to lead off with the Yveltal or lead off with the Groudon, as it turns out that he has Scarfed Yveltal. He's going to U-turn into the Arceus, and turn 1, I miss Toxic. And yeah, that really sucks, because putting this Arceus on a timer, or just getting off Toxic on this Arceus in general, would have been amazing, because then I wouldn't have felt like I had to stay in here. Even if he had switched out and predicted me to try and bring in my Ho-Oh or my Groudon here, it really wouldn't have hurt me that much in the long run of the battle. And now I'm in a position of where I'm hoping that he now expects me to switch, and he either tries to go for a Toxic of his own, which I don't mind if my Arceus is Toxic. Like, Arceus is kind of nice in this matchup, but Toxicing his Arceus while still keeping my Arceus around is going to be best case scenario for me. So I do go for the Toxic. Unfortunately though, he does just go straight for the Judgment. Now, I am luckily faster than him, and it looks like Judgment's not doing entirely too much damage to me. Like, I can maybe live depending on rolls here, but unfortunately he is able to eventually knock me out. And even if I had switched out my Arceus, the fact that I was at about 6 or 7% after taking a Judgment meant that I would get knocked out to Stealth Rocks anyways, and then I can't really recover safely on anything on his team. So yeah, at that point I essentially just lost my Darkius, and it would have still been nice to keep around for this match, because I could have spread Toxic on his team, just spammed Judgment realistically. Like, he's got no safe switch-ins now that Arceus was poisoned. So I bring in my Gengar here, and I'm just going to decide to go for the Shadow Ball, because he does have the Groudon on the back. It's taking no damage. It's probably his best switch-in here, as I bring in my Ho on the Stealth Rocks. I lost my Defogger, my main Defogger anyways, an Arceus, but I do have Defog on my Xerneas if it really comes down to it, as I decide to Brave Bird. He does end up bringing in the Salamence, and I was hoping to catch him off guard here with the Hidden Power Ice, because if he had gone for the Dragon Dance there, that would have been absolutely terrifying. But he does just make the safe switch here into his Yveltal, as I will be able to go for the recover. Unfortunately, I can't really afford to stay in here, because that Foul Play is still doing way too much damage to me, so I'm gonna switch out here as he pulls a double switch into the Kyogre. And it seems like in all three of these battles, man, Kyogre was just kind of like the biggest issue I had to deal with. But yeah, I'm going to switch into Groudon here, try to get up my rocks. I think this variant of the team actually had Fire Punch and not Stone Edge, so I couldn't go for the Stone Edge. Like, if I Fire Punch, I did 0 to Salamence. So yeah, the one match I needed Fire Punch, I didn't have it, and the one match I needed Stone Edge, I didn't have it. So yeah, that really sucks, honestly. But I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. As this turn, I'm going to go for the Power Gem. Now, in hindsight, probably could have gone for a Calm Mind there, because there was no real reason he should have left in the Salamence here. And then I'm thinking that he's gonna go for the Ice Beam this turn, expecting me to switch. So I go for the Calm Mind, but I just die. Yeah, and that's basically gonna be the battle. Like, there's not really too much else I can do at this point. I could have gone for the Precipice Blade there, but there was just no way I was gonna knock out Kyogre. And unfortunately, Gengar, Xerneas, and Ho at this point don't really have too good of a chance of winning here. And this is where life kind of got back to me. So up until this point, I was thinking, okay, I lost, there's not really much I can do. But if you look at his team, the Groudon has been kind of weakened to 64%. I know Yveltal's Scarfed, but I have Xerneas, which is Scarfed. The Arceus is knocked out by Sludge Wave. Salamence is going to be knocked out, I think, after Stealth Rocks. Because he did, yeah, I'm pretty sure that Salamence took a bit of damage earlier, so I think it's around like 50%. And then if this is Necrozma Ultra Form, I outspeed him, and then I can knock him out with Shadow Ball, or I can hope that I can knock him out with my Gengar. So what I'm going to do here is switch out, expecting him just to go for the Dark Pulse, potentially a Foul Play even, but Dark Pulse was probably his better play. But he does make a good play there and going for the Oblivion Wing, and then I end up losing the Speed Tie here, which if my Xerneas had knocked out Yveltal, that meant that I could save my Xerneas for later to outspeed his entire team. Then Ho-Oh also would have been able to apply offensive pressure to his team, and then I might have had a chance to win there with my with my Gengar at the end. So yeah, if I had won the speed tie here, I still had a good chance to win. Unfortunately though, I lose the speed tie because I'm timid, which means the only way he was able to outspeed me was if he was timid and won the speed tie. So yeah, at that point I had about maybe a 50% chance to win, but unfortunately did not get that 50% in my favor. And yeah, unfortunately I'm going to end up losing this game here. So yeah, I didn't do as well as I had hoped. I really misplayed game 2, got a little unlucky in game 3, and I did get lucky in game 1, honestly, with that Dark Pulse Lynch. But hey, I was going for the best way I had to win, so you can't really get mad at that. But yeah, it is what it is. It was still a pretty fun 3 matches there. Good game to Cromagnet. Again, guys, let me know if y'all would like to see some more tour games in the future. I will definitely most likely be uploading the PU rounds, depending on how things go and if I am able to do them. But regardless, hopefully y'all did enjoy. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. With that being said, I will see y'all tomorrow with a showdown live and a Wi-Fi battle for sure. So later, everybody.
No matter where you're at, I'm not here to make friends, it's time to attack and deplete your HP with a final smash. Don't make me turn around and pull a 6-foot hacks. 6 foot hacks, yeah. 6 foot hacks, yeah. 6 foot hacks,